You're listening to the Bombad Generals.
General? Oh.
Hey, welcome to Bombad Generals. It's Seth, and I'm here with Matt and also the Bombad Corporal himself, Mike Barry. How are you guys?
Not bad. It's been a long weekend. How about you?
It's been pretty long. Yeah.
Yes, it is Sunday night. We had the next crowned world champion to happen earlier today. Congratulations to Luke Cook again.
Is he really crowned if we never took it away?
Yeah, he retained the belt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fair. So good job to him.
Of course, if you've heard anything about Adepticon, it's probably that. So we're not breaking any news there, but we're looking here to. It's all fresh, but we want to take a bit of a dive into more what happened the weekend, the storylines, the meta, and our takeaways coming out. And it's cool. We're recording this Sunday night, trying to get it to you guys right away.
Yeah.
Partly get it out of our minds, get it out of the way. So
Matt's just like, I'm done.
Exactly.
I'm ready to be done.
Yeah, a nice quiet
Next
week
season,
will be
let's
nice.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no episode Friday, so don't be looking for that. You're getting a little special early bird here.
Yep. Well, I know last week you all heard about our predictions and kind of what we were thinking is going to happen, and honestly, a lot of it came true.
We were worried we'd be idiots, but Mike, you probably didn't hear, but we nailed every prediction.
Actually, there was all but one. I predicted Tugar in the top 8, and that did not happen.
Yeah.
We had Tugar in the top 16.
We did have Tugar.
And you were one of them, Mike.
Yeah.
Good job.
Thank you.
Golf clap.
Hopefully we can get the top 16 lists on all the list reports.
Can we get top 32 maybe?
I'll take that. And so we had that. So 6 out of the 8 lists were Empire.
We talked a lot about Empire, and I think it was funny. When you talk top 4, you don't want to overanalyze such a small data set, especially a lot comes down to matchups.
Yes,
totally.
42 of the 64 lists that advanced to day 2 of the 2 ones from day 1 were Empire, and 15-ish each of Blizzard and Double Darks. But it was funny, the top 4 was kind of one each of, I'd say, the big dogs from Empire. There's a Blizzard Force, there's a Double Dark, and there's a Double Bounty.
Yep.
Yes.
Those are the 3 big ones. Maybe not the exact list you would think of, but the archetypes were there.
Yeah.
So nailed that one. And Seth, you nailed the prediction about Shadow Collective.
Shadow Collective. You don't see a lot of Shadow Collective in tournaments. That's because 1, they're expensive, and 2, the people who play them really know what they're doing, and they advance really well. And so and the reason why people don't play them is mainly because they're expensive.
I think too, it's sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
Complete
go.
aside, but I think even when Empire was bad, a lot of people play Empire because they're just this is why I got into Legion.
Totally.
There's no one who's really I got into Legion because of Shadow Collective.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of Shadow Collective lifers. There's a few.
There's
a few, but it's definitely not any of the mainline factions.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
we had an individual. Her name was Lila Claire. And she went top 8. She actually made the final table against Luke Cook. She was running an 8-act Black Sun list. Out of all the Shadow Collective, I would not have guessed it to be an 8-act by Black Sun list.
Yeah.
And so actually, her list name was Pink Suns because they were all painted pink.
They're all painted pink.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
It was a pretty awesome list. I think just from the jump with the Shadow Collective release, I think people have been sleeping on Black Sun a little bit. Everybody was like, oh man, pikes, and then they got nerfed, and I think Black Sun are they're really efficient.
They are.
They're really efficient.
They were it was Gen Con, right? Because in July we had Lone Star, we had some international tournaments, and we saw Maul Pikes doing really well. And then Gen Con in August, suddenly everyone swapped over to buses and Black Suns.
Yep.
And they did well, and then it kind of went away. And I know personally for me, I was kind of thinking about in the back of my mind, okay, Pikes are going to get nerfed, but Black Suns could escape the nerf, and 80-point Pikes, hard swap them all for Black Suns, it could work. But I wasn't brave enough to drop below 10-acts. That was the thing, right? They went up a bit in cost. I couldn't really find a 10-act list I liked.
Yeah.
Lila coming in 8 acts and for the most part, not caring at all.
Yeah.
Hey, 8-ax is where it's at these days.
I guess.
don't know what you guys are thinking, but
I haven't, watched the whole final yet, but 12-ax against 8-ax, I'm sure was part of the
that's not the matchup you want to pull.
No.
I think 8 versus 10 is pretty doable.
Especially with the pass.
Yeah, and I think, if you're bringing an 8-act list, you're probably hoping that if somebody is bringing a 12-act list, you're hoping that they're going to get knocked out by a 10-act list somewhere else in the tournament. That's just not what you want to pull on the final table.
No, for sure. And from what I heard on the Discord, she has been practicing kind of variants of this list since September. Mm-hmm. So again, props to her for working through the nerfs, not only to Black Suns with the price increase to the Vigos, but also the deflect changes on Maul, the transport changes, and kind of working through all that to still have a really effective list and a great meta call.
Yeah.
Because you know what the problem with Blizzard Force is? They don't have Pierce and they have white saves. So if you've got a massive army of red saves that can throw a lot of dice, that's a pretty good way to get around it.
Yeah, I know one of the Blizzard players that played Laia, he said, man, I've, I think it was 9 defense dice. I've never rolled that many defense dice against, because there's just massive dice pools coming in. Yeah. And I just know Black Suns do that.
Yeah, and the rerolls are pretty crazy. I will say, I was a little surprised that there wasn't any standalone Vigos in the list, just from
aim support?
Yeah,
I was thinking the same thing, and there's no tactician on the bus. The points are tight, I think, is the thing, right? Yeah. And the bus is usually dying, so I get why you don't want to add points on it, but and the Vigos may be part of it too. The Vigos are easy-ish bounty targets.
Yeah, that's for sure.
They're easier than the pikes. I know range 1 is a lot when you cohere backwards and all of that, but when you're talking about a range 2 aggro unit, it's a lot harder to hide that Vigo than it is for a pike capo, I think. So I think that's also part of it.
Yeah, and IG-88 is just... man, he got me round 1 in this tournament. He got me pretty good.
88's really good.
His reach with the steady card is
fantastic.
Is huge.
Yep.
It's basically range 5, and it's really hard to hide from it.
Yeah. I remember there was a certain podcast way back soon after IG-88 came out that gave him an A-tier rating in our Bounty Hunter tier list. So second only to Boba Fett himself. So
are you sure it wasn't IG-11?
No. He was in the C tier.
C tier? Wow, that's pretty high.
He might be in the D tier now that the land speeder is nerfed in a sense.
Okay.
But that's very unrelated to Worlds. Unsurprisingly, I don't think there was much IG-11. I don't think there was much Din. There's a decent amount of Bosk, I think ended up in our C tier back then.
Yeah.
So maybe we were a little
high C tier, low B tier.
Exactly.
Kind of yeah, and I think going back to Worlds, I think one of the cool things was also on the final table seeing someone from the UK.
Someone from the UK and seeing a woman in Legion is just representation. It's awesome. I think the community was very positive, really getting behind her. Because honestly, wargaming, usually it's a bit of a sausage fest. So just
a little bit.
Seeing someone, like that come in and succeed
different diversity is great.
It's fantastic to see.
Absolutely.
And all the positivity behind that.
For sure.
UK, stealthy, sneaking in there. 3 of the top 8. People are hyping up Germans, but UK was really the ones that made a splash.
I mean, don't forget, Germans did make a splash. They were still really good.
They're still good.
Finn P, he's
exactly.
very good, but
yes.
But I think about people slept on UK because they play wild lists. I mean, you think of Dave Grant, but in his wild list, but it's just they do really well with their wild lists.
Yeah,
and so
I think they have a much more unique meta than something
really cool to see.
Germany or Australians. You see those lists and you're those are kind of similar to what
those
I
are
expect.
your meta and your invader
exactly.
leagues or your Nova Opens or all the generic tournaments you see. Yeah.
For sure.
I think it was not only 3 or 4 of them in the top 8. It was three of them in the top 4, right?
2 in the top 4,
and they
had to team kill each other in the quarter or semifinals.
Yeah, it was 2 Americans versus 2 UK, and so
lots of team kills for the Germans as well. But it was. We talked in one of our preview episodes, I think, with LJ and our predictions one last week about how it would feel more like a real Worlds. And I know, speaking for myself, I got to play against a player from Poland, Italy, and the first one was Australia. So I got to play a whole bunch of different players. And you don't get that at any other tournament. So to me, it definitely did feel like Worlds. I got to talk to a lot of Germans, talk to people from the UK. It was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, round one was against Poland player. You know, it was just amazing. It really, for me, we've had a lot of Legion tournaments over the past 3 years or whatever, and it was really, really cool and heartwarming to kind of be able to finally meet and play with all these people that we've been talking online with, and just it was great.
Yeah, there were a lot of people where it's like, oh wow, yeah, this guy's actually also really cool in real life. It was not a letdown.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a bit of a pivot, but you mentioned round one. That reminded me when we're talking about storylines, it was a bloodbath. Day one, round one.
Yeah.
It was. You were looking at it like, wow, if I take a loss, that 1-1 pool or 0-1 pool is not an easy pool, including. Luke Cook and Submarine went through, right? And obviously no undefeateds for the weekend. Everyone had at least one loss. It was a really tough field. We won't go through all the names, but there were a ton of people who lost round one, a ton of very good players. And a lot of them rebounded and showed that resilience.
All three of us lost round one.
No, I lost round two.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant day one.
We all lost day one. Yeah,
for sure.
You don't have to talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, but seriously, I lost round one. I was in a dark place there for a second.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I looked at all the other people that lost round one, and I was like, I don't want to draw any of these people on day one of this tournament. I don't want to be out round two. Yep. That's not any fun.
And there were very good players who went 1 and 2. Not because they got bad all of a sudden, but just because it was a tough field, and sometimes the matchups don't go quite your way, and that's the thing about these big tournaments. So a bloodbath for sure. And on a really positive note as well, going back to the finals, it was a world event. The world was watching 850 viewers on stream. That's doubling the last high for Yavin Base. David streaming on his channel, doing a great job.
Yeah.
420 viewers. LVO was a new peak and just cruised past doubling.
Doubled that on for
awesome.
the Worlds. Yeah, and it's great. And it's cool to see just how Yavin Base has grown a lot, and just how the community has rallied around Yavin Base, and just for streaming, calling for more streaming because people want the contents out there, and so that's super cool to see.
Yeah, and if you want the content, go to his Patreon. We plug him a lot because we love him, but go to the Patreon and give him some money. Give him all your money, honestly.
Patreon.com/YavinBase. Yeah. Go to that.
For sure, because, now we're 850. Hey, if we double that again this time next year, we're talking we're in the 1,000. I can see it happening.
Yeah.
It's not crazy to think about.
Yeah.
Right?
So going on the next part, we want to talk about each of our own personal takeaways.
Yeah.
Just from this weekend. And Mike, I want to start with you. Kind of what was your big takeaway just from this weekend?
Are we sticking to one here?
Well, start with one.
Okay.
Right. Go for it. Yeah. We got time.
So I think my biggest thing from this weekend that was, I guess, constructive in nature, I'll say, is that I think that we really need chess clocks. We need to kind of really dive into this and have a serious conversation about how, competitive Legion operates, and, we've been waiting 4 years for Worlds, and having chess clock stuff come up. It came up in several games across the
important
weekend.
Games. Every game's important, of course.
And I think just to create an atmosphere that is non-adversarial, I think it's important, because a lot of times even if time isn't an issue, it can be perceived to be an issue, and it can be pretty subjective and abstract, and clocks are just I guess unbiased and fair.
Yep. Yeah,
right.
I agree.
And it makes it so that it's very clear what time you have, whose time it is, and how to get there. And I think we gotta get to a point where that's okay and accepted, and we gotta just, I don't know how we get to that point, but I think that we need to find a way.
I think you can start by maybe I mean, I think it's good steps. A lot of tournaments are doing it for top 8s. I think for Worlds, it's got to be there from round 1.
Yeah.
Because
as
I said, every single round is super important, especially next year when we go to Swiss. You know, 2 losses and you're out. You can kind of afford 1 loss. Clocks are they're not a boogeyman. They're not there to punish you. They're actually freeing in a sense.
Yeah.
Because now I don't have to worry about time. I don't have to be a jerk or I don't have to worry about like a social contract thing because they're impossible to police. It's very hard. By the time you realize it's an issue, like, hey, I'm taking like not a lot of time and my opponent's taking a ton of time, it's kind of too late.
Absolutely.
To really do anything about it. And you know, it takes the pressure off you when you've got a decision and you think, hey, I really need to like really sit down, think about all the paths because this is a critical juncture. If you're doing that on a shared clock and you're sitting there staring at the board for 5 minutes, you kind of feel bad for doing that. But if it's like, hey, I earned this time in the early game, I went fast. I know, you know, it's about knowing which units to. Hey, I just dodge standby, or I just move, right? Earn yourself that time, and then at the end of the game, you can say, hey, this is my time. I don't feel bad because I'm only hurting myself if I clock out.
Especially because there's like some lists and even some objectives that need to go to turn 6 for like to really have full effect on the game. And like sometimes, like I'm hearing games like end of turn 4.
Yeah.
So it's like that can't happen, especially like as a list like Yoda Chewy, it's a 6-round list.
Yes.
And so it's like that's where like I need to be prepped and ready to go, and I know that I can go 6 rounds even if my opponent, you know, however pace they play at.
And I think just from like time aside, it sort of allows you to like, I know I'm sure I'm not alone in this, but like if my opponent is taking what I perceive to be like a longer time on their activations than is like reasonable or necessary, and maybe that's just their pace, and that's fine. I get frustrated. Like I get like, I'm like, man, we need to go, and it kind of, I'm not gonna say it tilts me, but it definitely, it makes me feel like I have to play fast.
Yeah, exactly. And then you get sloppy, you pay the price because you're trying to make sure the game comes to its proper, I'll say its proper conclusion. I'm a big believer that, hey, the game is meant to go, it's not meant to go to time. Time is a construction of the tournament because we have to stay on schedule.
Yes.
Absolutely.
But that can't be, that's the last resort.
Yes.
Right? So I think chess clocks are a real simple way. Once you start using them, you realize it's not that bad.
No,
we're not saying, hey, bring chess clocks to your local. I think always encouraging people to kind of like just learn how to, you know, quicken up things. I think that's always good. Like it just helps to, even in casual settings, just to like kind of move through games faster. I think it turns people away if it's like, man, Legion's always 4 hours. Right?
Yeah, but, absolutely. And I think like, just to kind of, I guess, push back on that a little bit, is that I think don't like actively try and use them in your casual local games, but just have a chess clock available.
If people want to try it, or just say, hey, you guys want to try a chess clock,
100%.
See how it goes. And you can do it with like, hey, try a chess clock just for your own learning if you want to. Don't clock, if you clock out, you clock out, it's not ending the game, but you just get an idea like, oh man, I took my entire 90 minutes and it's only turn 3.
Yeah, right.
You know, maybe I shouldn't have thought for 5 minutes about whether to move, dodge, or dodge move with my officer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I also think it helps train people to get into the rhythm of Legion. Because like once you're in a rhythm, like you can make your decisions quicker, you can make and like kind of know your list better once you're in that rhythm.
Really, it really opens the door for great player communication.
Yeah.
I think too, right? It's not so much that the clock causes you to communicate well, but communicating well helps you play faster.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
And, you know, that's never a bad thing. Communicating and just having that constant open dialogue with your opponent is a really good thing. So don't be forcing them on people, I think is the takeaway. But just make it a more natural part of Legion, not a big scary thing.
Yep.
Events, I think, slowly increasing the amount we've got clocks, and for something like a premier event like Worlds, I agree. I think we have to have them round 1. It's the World Championships.
It's an invitational. Yeah. It's an invitational. Like everybody should. If you're at this event, you should know how to play Legion. You should know it well enough that you can play it quickly. You should know Yeah.
Yeah, and we're talking quickly. We're not talking rushing. That's an important thing too, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're not talking, hey, you gotta be absolute blitz mode.
No.
We don't. The time shouldn't be set up for that. But once you really get in that rhythm that you're talking about, it's very doable to complete a game on time every time.
For sure.
Absolutely. Matt, what was one of your big takeaways?
Yeah, so for me, my big takeaway was from this, and also from LVO to an extent. I think it reinforced how much I don't like playing a meta list at an event like this. And I feel like hey, look, I have my reasons. I wanted to beat Blizzard Force, and Double Dark Boba was the best way to beat Blizzard Force.
Yep.
Did I ever face the Blizzard Force? No. Again, that comes down to pairings and stuff. I never got to knock them out.
He got his karma, everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. But the thing, I think I've talked about this before, like, I think part of it, maybe it's an ego thing, and I'm like, hey, I want to outsmart everybody and bring the counter punch.
Yeah.
And, cheeky win. It's glory. It's winning with glory.
Yeah.
When you can. I think so.
Like,
There's
to not bring a medalist.
Yeah,
to not bring
for
a
sure.
medalist.
Yeah.
Exactly. To bring the counter medalist. To bring a medalist and win is less glorious. And I don't know about you guys. I'm in it it's all about the glory, obviously.
There's some people that I think have achieved a lot of glory lately. So
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah.
But the thing about having the medalist, obviously, is that everyone is prepared for you. But, well, to go back to the glory comment, not me, clearly. We can agree on that. I played LVO at Blizzard, or I played Blizzard at LVO, didn't get nerfed. I'm an idiot. I played Double Darks. I bounced day 2 Worlds.
Gosh.
No glory. I'm just a regular old loser. But
But I actually think, it comes back to the conversation, and I think you actually practiced a lot with your medalists, but I think to some degree it comes down to like what you're most comfortable with.
Yeah.
And like I feel like a lot of times when I try to play a medalist that I haven't practiced a ton with, just because it's like a good, efficient list, I find that I'm worse with it than what I normally play with.
Yes, and I think too, partly there are differences in medalists, and that's a really good point, because Blizzard, that was something, I'm not really a bikes player. It's not something I'm experienced with.
Yeah.
So it felt awkward playing it. It was a very good list. So I know enough about Force users, I could pick up and play it to a pretty decent extent.
Yeah.
But it didn't feel, I didn't enjoy it, and it didn't feel as right. Whereas with the Boba Double Darks, sure, it became meta, but I was practicing that before anyone was talking about it on the Discord. Not to say I discovered it. Everyone discovered it at the same time when Darks came out, right?
Yeah.
But at least that list, I built it. I understood exactly why I made every decision I did.
Yeah.
And we can, you can look back at the our previous episode. Seth and I, we talked about why we chose our lists. I knew why I went with Shore Mortars instead of HH-12s and Protector. I knew why I went with 6-man squads. When you know that and everything is purposeful, that gives you a much better spot going in than when you take the list and you don't know why these decisions are made.
Totally.
Right? But the problem is everyone has a plan for you, and you don't necessarily have a plan for everyone.
Yeah.
Because you can't prepare for everything. So you show up at a table, you don't get that long to really analyze the situation. Your opponent looks and says, okay, I know what my plan is for this. Maybe I have to tweak it a little bit based on the situation. But you look at their list and you're saying, oh man, I didn't think about that. Okay, how do I have to approach this? And they obviously, when you're talking Darks, especially, is a very good example of this. There is tech out there for Darks. Unlike, Blizzard, you couldn't really tech for it, but...
Speak for yourself.
I
don't know. The list that the Germans came up with, I thought was pretty good. But I think to your point, like, you show up at a table, you haven't run this matchup once. They've probably ran this matchup like 15 times.
Exactly. Yeah. Everyone's practiced against Dark Troopers.
Yeah.
And everyone's ready for you, and that makes it really hard to get through when everyone is ready for you and expecting you.
Yeah.
Everyone who's worth their salt, who's really gunning for that title.
Totally.
So I think this definitely goes into one of my biggest takeaways, which was not over-teching, just for like a single meta list out there, which like everyone was like, oh, I'm going to tech against Dark Troopers. But like as we saw in the top 8, like Blizzard really kind of dominated the meta through everything. Because I think I saw, like I didn't tech against it, but I had tools available.
I think that's the right approach.
Having tools available for like a meta list, like in a list you're comfortable with, is helpful. But like completely changing again, like your comfortable list is like not the way to go. And just having like adding tools like Mike, you just added the Santa. You normally run Anakin barrier.
Yep.
But like now you ran Anakin saber throw with RPS to get that fire support.
And I brought 2 RPSs, and I think to your point, like I was like, man, I really need to be in a place to deal with darks. And the one game against darks I lost. And in hindsight, like, I was at 799. For 1 point more, I could have taken the second rocket out and made it a Z6. And I think that difference probably cost me a game, to be honest. And I think 1 RPS would have been enough, to your like point about just having the tools available. I just wanted to have more tools in my pocket because,
Yeah, I think it's tough. It's you think about an event like this, there's cost involved, there's time involved.
Yep.
And honestly, someone is going to get through, someone's going to go far and never face Dark Troopers.
Absolutely.
The odds of it being you are low, but it could happen. It's definitely not, it's pretty far from zero for you. So there's a case to be made to probably don't completely discount. Something like Darks is a very special case because if you completely discount it, you will almost certainly lose.
If you're dealt it, you will probably
But
lose.
like if you don't skew as hard as you could, and you focus more on the other matchups, then if you just don't get Dark Troopers, you're feeling pretty good. I think the hurdle is, well, if I do that and then I face like 2-3 Dark Trooper lists and I lose because of it, you feel like an idiot and you're like, I saw this coming, I chose to ignore it, and then it bit me and my weekend's over and I could have avoided this. That's the thing.
It's a real feels bad real
Exactly.
quickly.
It really is.
But
really
strategically, it might be in some circumstances one of the better things.
It's like what you do when you're playing poker, right?
Yeah.
You're hedging your bet, and sometimes the card doesn't come up on the river. And that's just what it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think the takeaway, I think Seth approached it perfectly. Like you had saber throw and Yoda was basically it, and like taking an RPS. So add some tools, practice the matchup, make sure that you don't have to make. There's going to be some matchups out there that maybe it's a 60-40.
Yeah.
And you just have to accept that and hope that, hey, when I play it, maybe it's not as optimized a version, or maybe I can, outplay the opponent and rely on that stuff versus trying to deal with it all in list building and going too far and losing the other way.
Like list building is a big part of this game, but also like just playing and knowing how your list operates and the strengths of your list, and also like the weaknesses of your opponent's list is really big and really critical. Like for instance, I never faced darks, although I did like have tools for darks, but like I faced 3 Blizzard Force back to back to back.
Nice.
So but like it was I kept taking them out one by one, but then I came across, Kyle Dornbus, and so I should have won the game, but pressure got to me. But oh well,
just sliding that in there. Oh, I should have won that game.
I was there. I saw it. I was on the table next to him. He's not wrong.
Yeah, and so actually facing I think a big thing, especially if you come to this a tournament like this, when you face one of the top players, just play your list. Like,
still play your
it's
game.
honestly me playing one of the top players got to me, and I'm just like, oh man, I'm really nervous. It's just like it just gets to you, and so it's just another player, another guy, or gal, and just play your strengths, play your list, and just get in your rhythm. And honestly,
and those players make mistakes too, right?
It does. Yeah.
I made several.
We've talked about before. Like,
are you calling yourself a big player?
Yeah.
Okay. There you go.
I'm going to take that.
You can take it. Yes.
Yeah. I will say, kind of speaking to your point, like I've had a lot of players like they walk up to the table, they see me across from it, and they say, they're like, oh man, this is going to be tough, and I'm just like, play your game, man. Please don't be intimidated. Like, we're just here to have fun. And like, I don't want them to feel like they're they've like auto lost when they show up at a table. Like that's not fun for me.
No, exactly.
And the fact of the matter is, the chances of them winning is a lot higher than I think that they give themselves credit for most of the time.
Trust me, when I lose, it's not like I'm exclusively losing to Kyle or whatever, right? I'm losing to all sorts of people. It happens. And I think to piggyback on that, it's a bit of a divergence, but like I've had people come up to the table and been like, oh, I'm sure you know the rules better than I, whatever you say, like, oh yeah, I trust you. And it's like, no, don't trust me. Like we've got judges.
Yeah.
Call judges on me. Like don't just say, oh, this person, don't be a jerk about like, oh, I think you're a liar, Kyle Dorboss, or whatever. But, if you're not sure, call a judge. That's what they're there for. They're not going to be offended, right? Yeah. So, yeah, that's a really good point. Like, just don't be intimidated. And honestly, some of it just takes, maybe you get a rep in or two and you're like, okay, yeah, I've done it before. They are just another person and they can lose.
Yeah.
Chances are your list better than I know it as far as like what it can do and stuff, and you probably absolutely.
Mike, it sounded earlier like you had a lot of takeaways and you chose just one. Do you have more? Spicy things?
I have a couple.
Okay.
I think for me, we talked about the kind of like everybody coming together with this tournament, and I just wanted to really put some emphasis on being at this tournament and kind of just meeting all the guys from all the different countries. It was amazing. Yeah. This was the best community experience I've had at a tournament by several magnitudes. And it was heartwarming. And that's not like a thing I normally say about Legion. I'm normally like pretty try hard and stuff, and I definitely was like try hard for this, but
as a top player, you have to be try hard.
Yeah. But like it was, there was just a lot more. Just like it felt like a bunch of people that had known each other for a very long time, like coming together after not seeing each other, but we'd never seen each other before.
It didn't feel like, oh man, there's that German clique staying together. There's that, like, obviously, they are probably all rooming together and they'll kind of congregate, but it's not like, oh, it's them versus us. It's that group. It's that group. It's kind of everyone blending together and just meeting, and it is really cool. We had I would say high expectations, and they were met.
Yes,
they were. Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah. Again, we talked about this past Friday, but like AMG, like honestly blew me away. Just like their investment into OP, and yeah.
I think it. I don't know. You can edit this out if you want, but I'm pretty critical of AMG generally. And I have to give them props for this weekend. It was very obvious they put a ton of money into this. They definitely, like, financially, there's no way this was not a like major loss on their. I mean, like, obviously they're investing into the community and stuff, so that's a gain, but it's not a financial one, right? And I think from where I'm sitting, I definitely disagree with a lot of things that they have done and are still doing, but this to me was a really big win. To see them as invested and just. They were there. It looked like a official Magic tournament is what it looked like.
Credit where credit is due. They showed up, and I think we're still using a lot of prizing that was for the Lost Worlds in 2020.
Definitely.
But they also had the wherewithal, I believe, to add in some Shadow Collective stuff, which would not have been at that Worlds. Obviously, it just came out last year, so. Knowing like, hey, this is some older stuff, that's why it's Rex, Cassian, Dooku on the tarot cards, but there's Gar Saxon. So that's a nice touch. They were there, just seeing them interacting with David as far as their support for the stream and getting things out there, like that was really good to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I definitely think like, Shatterpoint was obviously a pretty big thing that happened this weekend, but I also think it's very obvious that their support for Legion is going to be there and ongoing and continue. Like, this game is very much alive and kicking.
Yeah,
and,
we're not Armada.
Hey man, reinforcements back too.
I say that as a player who loves Armada.
I do too.
Yeah.
I think Armada's actually probably a better game.
We were talking about this last night. I think it's the best of the competitive games in this realm. But
yeah,
a discussion for another time, perhaps.
I definitely enjoy it less. But yeah, I mean, AMG knocked it out of the park. You know, yeah, it was great.
Yeah. So that was Worlds. It's
the World Tournament.
It was the Worlds. I guess tangentially related to Worlds. Maybe you can hear on the podcast, the chatter around us. I think one of the things that maybe you don't think about at these events with the cons is that it's a convention. There's a lot of people here.
Yeah.
Maybe they're here for Star Wars. Maybe they're here for any other game system. There's so many. And one of the fun things that I've really had this weekend is just being around a lot of people who love games and having it in the air, which is not something you get, not to knock the events, but like for something with FLG, it's not like you're staying at the hotel and everyone's playing board games in the lobby, right? Like,
yeah, we can play Terraforming Mars again. What's going on?
Yeah, we will after this podcast. We will. Like, there's people playing all sorts of games. People are walking by and like talking about games with you. And even at the Wednesday or Thursday at lunch, we were playing Star Wars deck building game, lending it to the Germans, so they were playing it and trying it out. It's just an atmosphere of people who love the same things you love. And I think one of the big things for me about Legion is like, hey, I get to be around a lot of people who not only also love games, but they also love Star Wars. That's like, hey, well, those are my two main personality traits right there. So we're off to a great start. So just being surrounded by that is really great.
Yeah.
So we've taken care of Worlds.
We'll be here next year. That's official. Hopefully.
In case you didn't hear, new competitive season starts May 4th.
Yep.
I think I speak for all of us that we're kind of not going to be doing as much competitive play and reps, in the next couple months. But I, for one, am very excited. Yavin-based Team League going to be starting up soon.
Yep.
Playing some jank. We've got ladder is always happening, the Legion ladder, and Seth and I will probably be playing in the Elims tournament for that, playing some spicy lists. I think it's a really good time to get creative and try new things because the stakes kind of just got lowered a lot, so it's time to let loose. It's time to let loose, put my Dark Troopers on the shelves for a little bit.
Get Wicket out and on the shelf.
Wicket when?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm looking forward to. I don't want to speak for you guys if that's the same, but
no, I think you're on the right track there. I think burnt out is not the right terminology, but I'm ready to kind of kick back, relax, and not have to worry about playing in a big tournament for a while.
Yes.
In a week, I'll probably be like, oh yeah, hey, you got any of that? You got any Legion rounds that you want to do?
Are you ready for ACO?
Yeah, exactly. But it's very different. Like, man, I've got to practice these meta matchups for my Worlds list versus like, hey man, Seth built me an Obi Yoda list that I don't know. I'll put it on the table and I'll try it out. It's kind of remembering why we love the game, sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you can get lost in the grind, and it's just like, no, it's just we're playing it because it's cool
it's
and
a fun
there's
game.
Weird stuff going on, and it's good to always fall back on that. So
it's a great game.
Any closing comments from you gentlemen?
It is a weird game.
Okay, yeah, that's what we should leave people with. Yeah,
it's a weird game.
Yeah. It's a weird game. It's a great game. It was the best of times.
It was the worst.
It was the worst of times. Definitely highs and lows, for sure. For sure. I think each of us this weekend we're feeling ourselves and our feels.
Yeah. It's a roller coaster.
Yeah, for sure.
We got knocked out progressively rounds 1, 2, 3 yesterday, so we were all wallowing at different
venting
times.
to each other.
It was like, I got knocked out. I'm wallowing. Okay, I get over it by the next round. Seth gets knocked out. He's wallowing. He gets over it. Mike gets knocked out. He's wallowing. It's like we were there for each other, but we weren't going through it all at the same time.
Which I think was a good thing.
Exactly.
We were all in different places on the path.
That's good. Yeah.
For sure.
That's why I did it for you guys. I figured it's going to happen. I'll get it out of the way.
It's like I was playing Dark Troopers. I probably deserved it.
I'll
go
first.
There you go.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Hey, well, thanks so much for listening to the Bombad Generals.
Thank you, Mike, for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, anytime.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we hope you have a great day and stay Gungan.
This has been the Bombad Generals.
Listening to Bombad Generals is not scientifically proven to make you a better Legion player. Side effects may include bad dice rolls, missed triggers, game losses, bankruptcy, divorce, vomiting, and sudden death. Ask your doctor if Bombad Generals is right for you.